Started. All of you are here for a reason. I don't necessarily know what it is. There's something about the topic that inspired you to be here today, but really make a decision inside yourself that you are going to have a breakthrough, whether it's today or this afternoon or tomorrow, that you want something specific today. So really think about what that specific thing is and make the intention that you want that answer, that you want that clarity, and just put that out and say, that's what I want. You don't have to know exactly, or maybe you do know exactly. And then open up your heart to say, I want to know something or connect to something I'm not connected to. I want an awareness. I want a relationship to something I don't know about inside of myself, or that I've been ignoring or not paying attention to in a way perhaps I should, or that would be helpful to me. So yeah, let's start there. And so I'm going to dive into the content. And gosh, I love this one. I don't know. I really like this one today. All right. So, and what we just did in our life, our day to day, I don't care what it is you're doing. Before you start anything, focus on your state of being. And that's what we did for a couple of moments just now. And it can be a couple of moments, it can be 30 minutes, it can be 4 hours, whatever you feel you can do. But before anything else, focus on your state of being. Because all of us, when we quiet our mind and we focus on just our being, we'll begin to notice things like, oh, wow, I'm really having trouble settling down, or, oh, wow, my hip hurts, or, oh my goodness, I'm really stressed out, or, oh my goodness, I'm like silly today, or, you're going to notice things. And the longer you sit in that state of observing yourself, you'll notice more and more things. And the coolest part about those types of exercises, meditation of any sort, you become a receiver. When you turn off the mind, you can receive. And that's, a lot of us have a challenge with that. That being said, I wanted to make the statement here that we don't attract what we want, we attract who we are. I'm meaning our frequencies. We're all a bunch of energy balls. We're sitting in this pile of protoplasm, right? But our state of being will determine what we draw to us. And the thing, and the trick, I mean, the grim reality, or whatever you want to call it, is whatever the lowest common denominator is in our energy is how we'll be able to manifest and attract. Now, it doesn't cancel everything out, but if you're aiming for a 10, you're only going to get a 7 if you're housing a lot of low frequency vibrations. And that's part of what creates that missing the target. So I think the more we can understand from the get-go, from the beginning of whatever we're thinking about, whatever we're doing, whatever our plans are for the day, is that remember, we want to work on our state of being. And even if we can up-level things a bit, that is useful. And, that's all most of us do anyhow. We tend to think, oh no, I want leaps and bounds. I am going to get to the finish line in record time. Well, maybe you will, maybe you won't. And that's not important. All of us can only take one step at a time. And so it's so important that we be with that step to the highest degree we possibly can. Okay. And here's, I don't know how these phrases come up to me, but you guys, some of you may not be old enough to remember, but they had this commercial on TV. You can't fool Mother Nature, right? That we have to learn how to focus on the correct issue. All of us do it. I do it too. We lie to ourselves, or we pretend, or we try not to focus on the things that are really going on with us. And that's also the other piece of when we center ourselves, we begin to see all the things that we're trying to avoid not looking at. But And when I say Mother Nature, I'm meaning God, I'm meaning the universe, I mean the energetic fields that we exist in. There's no fooling. It's kind of like, as a psychic, I always tell people there's no secrets. I mean, it's one of the reasons I always get from people's permission to look in their energy or ask something, because if you invite me into your energy, I'm going to see everything. I'm going to see everything. I may not say everything, but it's really a sacred covenant for me when someone decides to say, yeah, come on in, take a look, and then I sit in their energy. That's just the microcosm that divine consciousness sees everything as well. And as we're in this energetic, relatable universe, you can't pretend your energy. If it's in there, it's going to be activated and creating. So many of us are focusing on the wrong issue. We're like 3 steps ahead and like, no, I want to focus on that issue up there because it looks so much more fun. And that's one I think I can do. But it's kind of like if you're climbing a ladder, you can't climb on the top rung. I mean, unless you're like a long jumper, you could jump. Or someone, I don't know if you saw that meme going around on Facebook and TikTok about this firefighter guy, oh my God, throwing this ladder up the building and throwing it again and climbing it like Spider-Man. I mean, but that's not the norm. We all take one step at a time. And the more we master the step we're on, the more likely we're going to build momentum to the other steps that follow. And they become, I don't know if easier is the right word, but it's smoother. That it's not as choppy. But we have to learn how to focus on the right issue. I know when I'm in my coaching courses, I'm always having to tell my coaching students to focus on, I'd say there's 5 things you want to focus on at any given time. Start with one, click that off, go to the next. Because they're always wanting to go, oh no, I need to figure out what it's going to do or how to be on TV when they're not even there. They don't even have a website yet. Okay, so focus on the correct issue. And that's a part of what we're going to talk about today in terms of how do I make sure I'm focusing on the correct issue? What is that? Which brings us into, this is the most lengthy comment I made today, but we tend to think that the more we double down on something or worry about it, a lot of us think that worry is productive and it's the opposite of productive. Or if we feel badly about it, that we're doing something. And we are doing something. We're feeding the wrong polarity. We're doing something and it's the wrong thing. And here's the other part to that. We can do the wrong thing with the best of intentions, but it's still the wrong thing. And so then what we do is we go over and over and over and over again. And because we have a desire and an intention, we think it'll be okay, and it won't. That won't work. And that's why I love this particular graphic with this guy running in the wrong direction. Look he's ripped. He's obviously doing his thing, but dude, you're going in the wrong direction. And as long as you're going in the wrong direction, it's not going to work out for you. And so we get really attached to what we think is the right thing. And so we have to become more malleable in how we perceive our choices and recognize, this may or may not be the right thing. And I kind of have to listen. And I know I saw some graphic on Facebook or somewhere with, what's his name, Steven Spielberg last week. And he said it perfectly, that our guidance comes to us through whispers. It's whispers. And that's why being able to be quiet and still and calm is so critical, because we need to be able to actually hear the guidance. But so often, and I'm guilty of it too, that the brilliant mind wants to overrule the whispers. And I tell you what, culture tells us that's the thing to do. The majority of culture tells us that life is external and that it's what you own, it's how much money you have, it is what you look like, it's everything external. I mean, my God, what the Kardashians have done to support that idea. And that might be a couple of them are actually not unintelligent, but the point being, the more we focus on those external achievements as opposed to balancing our inner world, we're kind of off course. And it's funny, I traveled this week and I got a healing from someone who I can't recommend enough. His name's Richard Garnier. He's not your typical healer. I don't know how to describe him, but every time I have a healing with him, I have an extraordinary shift in my life. And when I come out of a session, I feel like I'm sitting inside a tornado, the way he diddles in my energy, essentially. But a lot of us have tornadoes in our life all the time, and we're outside of that tornado, and the tornado is spinning us around. But as he diddled in my energy, and my energy kind of was circulating, I sat there for quite some time so I could integrate and continue to integrate. So again, this talks about the energetic nature of life and how we want to approach our creative process. And here again, the brilliant mind can never compensate for the being and how it wants to expand. And this gets into more of the spiritual dimension. I hope you guys can't hear my landscaper mowing my lawn, but the brilliant mind cannot compensate for the spiritual essence. There's more going on here in this multidimensional experience than our own experience. We have a piece to what's going on, but it's not the whole story. And I know when I'm coaching people on prosperity in general, I always have to remind them, the more what you're trying to do will impact the greater good. It will impact my family. It will impact my neighborhood, my community, my workplace environment, the world. The more your prosperity is tied to the greater good, the easier time you'll have of it, because it's all connected. We are all connected. I know I have this discussion as well with people who say, well, I'm so alone. I'm alone. I'm alone. I'm alone. I'm alone. Well, it's not even possible to be alone. We are all connected. We are one consciousness, and none of us is more important than the other, but each of us is critically important to the whole. It's really an interesting concept. But there's more going on here. And if you remember that and sort of trick your mind, because many of you guys are super smart, you have to be able to disengage the mind to begin to flow with energy. Now, we're going to start to get into some of let's kind of transition here into some of the reasonings about how we find ourselves in these predicaments. Many reasons they're not even going to be spoken about. If we're going to talk about karma, we're going to talk about all that kind of stuff, not today. But most often at the root of our challenged process is a lack of self-love, self-acceptance, or another form of feeling inadequate, which is just, you guys may be going, no, that's not true. I'm telling you, it's true. It's very true. And it often shows up as fear, and it shows up as justifying why we don't take action. It shows up about why we wait to make decisions about something or embark on a certain path, that we don't remember who we are, that we are identifying with the human experience as the whole thing. And maybe people have been mean to us, or maybe we've been rejected one too many times, or maybe one area of our life or more areas of our life haven't gone the way culture or perhaps we think it's supposed to go. And so we take that in and we believe that that's true about us. And then we stop liking ourselves because we think we're not good enough. We've gotten it wrong. When am I going to figure it out? Why is it taking so long? It must be me. And all these kinds of statements that really just give us a foundation of scarcity. And and then again, when you zoom out to what is true about who we are as beings, we're whole and complete at the beginning. And then life experience happens to us, and it chips away at our ego, and we have feelings that get injured, and we start buying into points of view that we're not enough and we're not whole, that something's missing. And so if we know that this is the foundation 99.999999% of the time, actually it's probably 100%, but it's always going to come down to this in some way. And that's the piece most of us don't want to look at, because we feel embarrassed. And again, it's like, it's a hamster wheel. I'm embarrassed to admit I don't feel great about myself. I'm embarrassed to even know, and even say out loud, I'm embarrassed. Or it's like, if we admit it, then it's true or something. I mean, it's very complicated. And this is also part of the reason that people like me have a job, because I have to keep reminding people to have compassion for themselves and to learn how to love themselves, and to not just sit in those feelings of lack and self-torture. But this is the thing. And so, especially if you're struggling with relationships and having sustaining relationships, I'm not a gambling woman. As a matter of fact, I despise gambling. I think it's the most boring thing ever. But if I were a gambling woman, I would bet that this is what the problem is at the end of the day. Okay. Next, for all you smarty pants, smarty folks who know how to move energy around, you know how to, I mean, boy, you can track somebody down, you can, make all kinds of things happen in your life. You can get people to do things. You can make all kinds of things happen in your life by moving energy around. You can make it happen, but that is not the same as being able to flow with energy in a collaborative energy or effort, excuse me. And so I love that phrase, don't push the river, flow with the river. Flowing with energy is the ticket. That's what's required for next level manifestation, whatever it is you're trying to create. And especially if you're hitting a roadblock, if you're not able to flow. And what does flow mean, actually? What does that mean? Well, you think about it. Is it constricted? When you cut off an airflow, is that a flow? No. Is it pushing something to, is it crying? What is it? Well, when you think about flow, it's like, no, I'm with it. I am with the flow of energy that's happening. There's not a resistance there. I'm not pushing against it. I'm not saying, all right, I'll do it. No, we see the wisdom of making the choice to not resist, and we surrender to what is in our moment. And that puts us in a flow of energy. And that takes us into this one. When we can, on a regular basis, train ourselves to recognize that the discomfort, the pain, the sadness, it's our teacher, and it's actually trying to point us to what we want. But there's something we're trying to heal, we're trying to expand beyond, or we need to expand. We need to expand in order to receive what it is we want. And expansion always happens internally first. That's quantum physics. Thought precedes matter. And so we have to learn how to say thank you for frickin' everything. And we've got to get to thank you. And we can't, like I said, we can't fool Mother Nature. It can't be, thank you, I'm really happy, I feel miserable right now, great, thanks. It's not that. It's, all right, well, this feels like something it's not where I'm thinking I want to be, but I know this is serving me, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to learn more about how to become more of who I'm trying to be, because that's why it's here. It's for who I become. And so when we understand that and focus on, what's this for? What is this for? What's in here? And be very, very curious and remain curious. That's your best friend. And practice being grateful. I wish I would have changed the word from grateful to appreciative, because grateful to me is more like, oh, I've been rescued, I'm so grateful. But appreciation just means you're appreciative. It's a state of being that you want to cultivate as your natural reaction to life. Now, there's not perfection here, by the way. I'm not going to tell you that every moment of every day I'm sitting here feeling appreciative for every moment. You know, when I got off the airplane, whenever it was, a couple days ago, and I hit the ground, and I immediately turned on my phone to two people I love very much fighting like cats and dogs and wanting me to mediate. Now, that was not something I was appreciating in that moment. I found it to be quite painful, but I eventually got there. And so the point is, we know where we want to go in our energy, and we get there as quickly as we can, but we don't pretend like we're there if we aren't. But cultivating a state of appreciation, I mean, that's the highest form of abundant energy you could possibly live inside of, because if you're appreciative in your state of being, there's no lack, there's no scarcity, there's no emptiness. And so what can the universe deliver to you when when it's mirroring back to you your state of being? Pretty good stuff, because you're already there. And so practice being grateful / appreciative also for what you don't want. And that's really the point. Can I sit here in this moment with these two people that I love who are injuring each other in the most horrific ways and be appreciative for this moment? And I would actually sit here and say to you, just to be honest with you guys, I'm not quite there. I'm getting there. I'm finding ways to be appreciative of the moment, but it still doesn't feel great to me. Okay, so I have some work to do there, but I know I need to get there, and I will. And it will serve them better, but it will serve me better as well. All right. Now, one of the ways we get stuck and stay stuck is when we're hyper focused on the thing we want. I want a relationship. I want a relationship. I want a relationship. Or I need money. I need money. I need money. I need money. Or, you know, I hate this thing that's happening. Oh my God. Oh my God. And we just sit around and kvetch on that thing. And it's all we ruminate on. And that's constricting. That's not with the flow of energy. And if our mind gets attached to something like that, then one of the best things you want to do is bring something else into balance in your life that's easier to get to, easier to reach. So maybe you don't have a relationship that you really, 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 really want one. Think about something else that you can bring into balance. You know, whether it's your environment that needs balance, whether it is another relationship that someone you haven't talked to in a long time. It's like, oh, dang, I haven't talked to that friend in ages. I think I owe him, her a phone call, you know, or, you know, I've been putting off dealing with, you know, organizing my bank statements. I don't know. Bring something else into balance that you can get to right now, as opposed to focusing on the thing that's not yet in your experience to work with. And that's an example, by the way, when I spoke earlier about we're often focused on the wrong step. That would be an example. You can't bring something into balance that you don't have, but you can bring something else into balance, and everything touches everything else. We're not compartmentalized beings. We want to pretend we are, that I'm stellar over here and stellar over here and stellar over here, but over here, you know, I'm not. I'm inadequate. No. Yes, granted, some of us are born higher functioning in some areas, but remember the vulnerability, the weakness in our being or our state of consciousness, that's going to determine how well we attract. And so that's the thing we want to keep working on. So what we did today, just kind of quiet the mind even a little bit, connect to divinity first, and stay attuned to a flow of energy and trust the path to carve itself. We're all freaking control freaks, myself included, and we have to learn to let go. You know, I'm getting a good dose of this because I have a 20-year-old who's going to be 21. I've got a 17-year-old who's going to be 18, and I have to keep letting them go. I have to keep letting them do a lot of things that they didn't do when they were younger. And I'm so used to being the mama bear and on top of it. But it's the same thing in our lives, that we have to keep learning how to let go and let life do what it wants to do. And too often we interject ourselves and we think with our brilliant mind, oh no, I've got this, or my neighbor did it this way, or someone I spoke to told me this is the way it has to be done, or some coach or mentor or spiritual person told me that this is the way it needs to go. No, it's between us and divinity, and each of us has a unique path. So even though I can give you 100 examples of what has worked in my life and how my path has carved itself, you know, it's only a sort of a template. Okay, so there are some certain things that are consistent energetically, but your path is going to deviate from my path because you're not me, or you're not someone else. And so taking someone else's wisdom as your wisdom is a little bit scary. Maybe you have to synthesize it with your own inner voice. And that's really the point of being able to quiet the mind and hear yourself and hear those whispers Steven Spielberg spoke about. And if you can't trust, that's what you're going to need to work on. For instance, you know, when we're talking about what the correct step is, are you focusing on the right thing? If your deficit is that you can't trust the process, that's what you need to be focusing on. If you have so much anxiety, you can't quiet your mind, that's what you need to be focusing on. How can I quiet my mind? And we can ignore these things a lot. One of my friends I was visiting recently, brilliant woman, but never shuts down. And she's wondering why she's having a problem with X, Y, and Z. And so we had quite a conversation about this. And I'll check in with her next week to say, well, did you really decide to start putting some space in your day, or we're just going to run ourselves ragged 24/7? But that's the kind of thing we do, that we kind of know we need to go in a different direction, but we don't. And that's how we fool ourselves. And that's what I'm saying. We can't fool Mother Nature. Mother Nature being consciousness at large. Energy will respond to us. At the lowest level, we are vibrating. And that, again, that doesn't negate all the positive things we're doing, but it means that often we're going to miss the target. That it's like, all right, I'm aiming for a 10 and it's only a 7 yet again. Why is that? So this is examples of how do I focus on what I want? And then lastly, as we come full circle on the whole process, I love this phrase. I'm realistic. I expect miracles. We're such in our heads. We're in our heads. And this is different than pretending everything is okay and ignoring what needs to be focused on our life. But when we are focused and playing in the land of imagination, like little kids, I mean, if we didn't have imaginations, none of us would be anywhere in our lives. Just think about our kids. And any of you have had kids or been around kids, how they just think of everything and come up with all these scenarios, and they're just enjoying the heck out of their life and playing Superman or Supergirl, and they're out there flying and they're just having a great time with their imagination. And that imagination takes them into their life as they grow up. And, oh, when I grow up, I want to be this, or I'm so excited about that. And I think after we've had some life, we lose the ability to imagine and we only think about our life and what we perceive to be lacking. And, part of this is culture. It doesn't support inner work. It doesn't support that. You have to be realistic and you have to do this, that, and the other. One of the most significant sad stories that I remember from a client was this wonderful guy that came into my business. I think he was in his mid 40s, and he was an attorney and a good attorney. Excellent. And then he came to me, of course, because he wasn't happy and he was having a real hard time. And he goes, I've got a great practice. I've got a great house. I've got a great family, and I'm miserable. He goes, when I was in college early on, I was fascinated with environmental sciences, but everybody told me that was the wrong direction to go, to get more into corporate law or whatever. That's where the money was or whatnot. And so I listened. I wanted to be practical. I wanted to be realistic about my future. And so here I am heading towards 50, and I'm miserable and I'm stuck because I've got the mortgages. I've got all these people to take care of. And now I've built this business, and all I can think about is that I will still want to do environmental sciences. And so when we create a life based upon being realistic, it doesn't sing to our heart. We're not loving it. And so then we become trapped in something that we have to do. And that's a slow death. So we should practice regularly expecting miracles and imagining and thinking about all the wonderful things that happens, in addition to staying in the flow, in addition to healing our wounds, in addition to practicing stillness, in addition to that. It's just one more piece that we need to be thinking about all the wonderful things that can still happen to us. And of course, in our ageist culture, where, especially in the United States, where, age is not honored, especially with women. It's like, oh no, I need Botox, and I need plastic surgery, and I need this. And there's nothing wrong with that if you want to do it, but it's sort of implied to women, if you don't, your value is only in your appearance or your sexuality. So yeah, imagine all the things, the possibilities that can happen, because it doesn't matter your number. And one of my favorite, I don't know how many of you like Judge Judy or not. She's pretty hardcore, but she, in a personal interview, she says, you know what? If your dream doesn't happen in your 30s, it's going to happen. Keep at it. It'll happen in your 40s. If it doesn't happen in your 40s, it'll happen in your 50s and 60s and 70s and so on, 80s. She goes, but always be looking for your dreams. I mean, and I think she's close to 80 or above right now, and she's still relevant, right? So she gives the perfect example of living your passion and making no apologies for it. And so stay alive to your imagination and what you want to have happen for you, not just surviving your days.